Hi everyone, it is October 31st, 2009, Halloween, and this is TechieKris. Brought to you by our new sponsor, Windows 7, finally out, October 22nd, and it's awesome. Haha to XP lovers. Just a side note, I have released some of my personal compositions onto iTunes, so if you search for my name, Chris Komar, on iTunes, you will see my album. Also, I'm on Django.com, which is J-A-N-G-O, and you can find me by looking in the Electronica section or by searching my name directly. A company called XCM has made a product called the XFPS 3.0 Sniper. Kind of a dumb name, but it actually allows you to play your Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3 with a keyboard and mouse. A projector in your cell phone? That's right, a new technology called Pico projectors is going to be embedded into cell phones sooner or later that will use LED technology to be able to project onto a wall a small image of anything you want, either a video or a picture. Don't know if you're aware of this program. It's called Disk to VHD. It actually can take your hard drive and turn it into a VHD, which then you can run in Microsoft Virtual PC or another program that supports VHDs. That's pretty cool because if you want to test something on your particular configuration with all the software that you run, you can now use this program to turn your computer into a virtual computer. I wanted to take a minute to talk about the difference between a mechanical hard drive benchmark and an SSD hard drive benchmark. This is an HDTAC benchmark of a mechanical 500 gigabyte hard drive. What happens with a hard drive is it starts to read on the outer edge, much like an old vinyl record. And then as the needle starts to go in, it eventually gets to the inner edge of the hard drive. So what you can see here is this hard drive starts off at about 105 megabytes per second, but as the needle reads towards the inside of the platter and you get to the end of the 500 gigabyte barrier of the hard drive, it actually tapers out down to about 50 megabytes per second. That's actually over half of the performance degraded just because of the transition from the outer edge to the inner edge of the hard drive. Now let's take a look at an SSD hard drive benchmark. This is the benchmark of my Patriot Torqx 256 gigabyte hard drive. As you can see, not only is it much faster, it actually starts about closer to 200 megabytes per second, which is about twice as fast as the mechanical hard drive. Not only that, but as it reads towards the maximum capacity of the hard drive, which is 256 gigabytes, the performance does not degrade at all. If you look over to the right of the picture, there is an average read of 195.7 megabytes per second. That's extremely fast, and that's why I love the SSD. The really important thing to note here is if you look at under random access, it's 0.1 milliseconds. If we go back to the other benchmark, it's about 16.8 milliseconds. That's where you really feel the speed and power of an SSD. Sure, the actual sequential read and the write are much faster, but where you really notice it is when normally a mechanical hard drive's needle would be seeking from one place to another to find data. An SSD doesn't have to do that in any sort of way like a mechanical hard drive does. It basically just finds another place in memory, which is virtually no time at all. So that is why I highly recommend SSDs, despite their extreme high price. They are worth it. Just a reminder, Assassin's Creed 2 and Left 4 Dead 2 are both coming out November 17th. These are must-haves. I'm going to get them day of. I don't know if any of you played Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, but I found it to be a decent game. It looks like they're going to make a movie, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, starring Jake Gyllenhaal. It looks like it's going to be out on May 28th, 2010. Everyone, I'd like to welcome my special guest, the Demon. He's going to be helping me out on the show.
Thank you.
Looks like you have a few things to tell us today. Just bantering back and forth about iPhone and HTC.
It's really iPhone and Windows Mobile, but obviously the top 10 Windows Mobile phones are all made by HTC. And then the third phone would be the Droid, the Android, which is made by Motorola. So basically the iPhone, the 3GS, which is the newest version of the iPhone, it has a 600 megahertz processor in comparison to the newest generation of HTC phones, which have a gigahertz processor, and 256 of RAM, which is actually pretty much a huge upgrade in comparison to the old iPhones, which had 128 of RAM. So that's pretty much, you get most of the speed increase from the old models to the new models in just the RAM alone. Basically, the argument that people make is the iPhone it's not a good phone until you jailbreak it, but that's not an argument to be made. Once you put unlawful software on it, then it's not the iPhone that you're talking about. It's a completely different set of software, and then that's not really an argument to be made. You can make any device better with modifications. We're talking about a stock Windows Mobile phone and a stock iPhone. Stock iPhone doesn't play most Flash videos, and the stock Windows Mobile phone does. Now, obviously, the iPhone has a huge market on applications, like millions of applications, which is fine. That's where the Droid is actually going to come in. Because Windows Mobile, we have applications. It does a lot of stuff, like GPS-enabled stuff. We basically have all the stuff that the iPhone has now with Windows Mobile 6.5. My opinion is Windows Mobile is for the power user, iPhone is for the douchebag college student, and Droid is going to be the kind of for-everybody phone.
Demon, what can you tell people who have experienced Windows Mobile 6.1 or even older, dare I say, and might be kind of squeamish to get into a Windows Mobile 6.5 phone? Is there a difference?
Well, there is absolutely a difference. I mean, you're talking about that's the difference between TouchFlow 2D and TouchFlow 3D, because TouchFlow is that's like the glue that holds Windows Mobile together in a usable fashion.
I just got you have a good HTC Magio that Verizon calls it, but I believe it's actually the HTC Touch Pro 2, and that's running Windows Mobile 6.5, and it's a world of difference from even Windows Mobile 6.2. Especially with TouchFlow 3D, it's amazing, and I'd explain it the same way. It is really the glue that holds together the whole OS. It makes it so nice to use, and I'd have to say, whereas I used to want an iPhone, if I could ever switch over to AT&T, now I could care less. I'm happy with this phone. Let's segue from what you were talking about to XDA. They actually do have a lot of cooked ROMs for Windows Mobile, so that sounds to me like a good way to segue into giving them their products.
A lot of software.
What do you want to say about that?
Free games, programs, and stuff like that. And if you are interested in Windows Mobile and you want to get the most out of your phone, and this is the second thing to be said, is that the iPhone, obviously, not very good by itself, but once you jailbreak it and do all that stuff to it, then it's an okay device. Windows Mobile, you start off with a good base, and you go up a lot. I mean, there's a lot of good applications for that. So XDA developers, you just search XDA in Google, and it's the first thing to come up. It is the single largest source of Windows Mobile phone support on the web. That's it.
What's this about the Microsoft D&D table?
I don't know if you know, but Microsoft was making a fully touch-sensitive table for like storefronts and stuff, so customers could come in and see products that they were going to be buying, and then kind of put them into context.
Like on a restaurant or something, right?
Yeah, well, an idea. It's actually really expensive, and it turns out that it's not going to have a low-level application, and they're not going to be releasing it residentially for at least a few, like 5 or 6 years, if at all, because it actually turned out to be a lot more expensive than they thought it was going to be. So what they did do is they sent it out to a bunch of T-Mobiles and a couple of video game developers, and these guys made a D&D game where you take your game pieces, you put them on the table, it recognizes your game pieces and you, and then it also allows you to play D&D, and then lets the dungeon master come in. So it kind of takes the pen and paper out of it. So you actually get fully rendered enemies on the field with your actual physical game pieces, so you can move your game pieces along, and it has dice rolls and stuff like that. So basically, it takes the pen and paper out of the pen and paper. So you can actually see the enemies you're fighting and then fight them.
What is this car that can get over 100 miles per gallon?
All right, well, basically, it's Aptera. It's a California-based motor company, and they're actually, from start to finish, they made these cars completely by themselves. Like, if you think about, 50 years ago, what they thought we would have by the year 2000 was, flying cars and technology that was infinite. So I saw this car, and I was like, at least this is a step in the right direction, because we've had the same cars, the same model for cars for 50 years. They haven't changed much at all. They've gotten a little less pointy, that's it. So this car is the first car that I've actually found that actually takes a step in the right direction. It's not pushed around by any of the bullshit that has to do with the oil industry. The poorest model of the car is $25,000, price of a nice Honda Civic, 100 miles plus to the gallon. They do have a nicer model. It's closer to 40,000, 300 to 350 miles per gallon. So basically, the idea is it's taken all the science behind what we've done with airplanes and stuff like that and put it into a car. The whole roof is lined with solar panels for climate control and other comfort-based stuff, so you're not going to go 100 miles per gallon and be hot as hell.
Check that out. Link in the sidebar if you want to look at that car more. It looks like that's about all we had, so I really appreciate you, Demon, coming on the show, and hopefully we can do this more often. This has been really nice.
All right.
Well, that's about all the time I have for now. I'm sorry that things have been so slow, but I promise it'll pick up. Things have just been really busy. I'll see you next time.